I will do it later. My present self and my past self. How do they become lifelong friends? Well, it's mostly the job of my present self and his ability to control one of his favorite phrases, I'll do it later. This is a phrase I became very familiar with. I became a master at dodging the present, an expert deceiver, someone who would do anything to avoid finishing something that made me deeply uncomfortable because the temporary solution felt easier. Don't deal with it at all. I became the specialist in pretending the task didn't exist. I could come up with some trivial task that suddenly felt more urgent, just to hide that thing that couldn't really be hidden. But later is a debt, and eventually, the bill arrives. Later becomes a moving point in the future, one that keeps drifting forward until it can't move anymore. And by then, the damage is already done. The reason is simple. I refuse to act at the beginning. At some point, I had clearly become my own worst enemy when it came to facing important tasks. I did mature over time, but as I matured, my laters matured too, into something far more complex and far more ruthless. I started postponing things that should never be postponed. The kind of things mature adults should know, yeah, I have to do this now or I will hate myself tomorrow. How many turns of the clock before everything goes up in flames? The longer I let important tasks slide, the greater the risk that what follows is worse. And the more I resent my past self for not doing what I knew should have done. It's a domino effect. Every time I say, better later, I place another tile, extending the chain reaction. Is it really that dangerous to leave things for later? Will your food burn in the oven if you decide to take it out after your favorite TV show episode finishes, even though there's still half an hour left and the alarm has already gone off? Or what about that parking ticket I ignored for a few days because it was uncomfortable to think about it, which later turned into a higher fine because I missed the deadline? So how have I tried to fight this tendency? I created a character, Future Sam, my future self. Future Sam will be very uncomfortable if present Sam doesn't finish this task. Future Sam will probably curse present Sam for not doing it. So I ask myself, how do I want future Sam to feel? I definitely don't want him to feel miserable because of something I chose not to do. So I might as well do it now. That way, future Sam will appreciate me. This little exercise has helped me a lot. I mean, if you have the power to influence how you'll feel in the future, why would you choose to feel bad? As my grandmother, always so wise, used to say, the road to failure is paved with tomorrows. And maybe that's what later really is. Not just a delay, but a direction. Present Sam doesn't want future Sam to walk toward failure. So present Sam has to start laying a different path. One small action at a time. There is a huge monster very close to you. It stalks you at night in an uncomfortable silence and leaves you unable to sleep. Who could sleep with a monster nearby? It's so sinister that the harder you try to fall asleep, the more your frustration grows, because you simply can't. And the monster loves it, because it feeds on that frustration, and it grows even bigger. But when you finally manage to fall asleep, the monster disappears. Curiously, forgetting about what might happen tomorrow or next year weakens it even more. So much so that it almost disappears completely. When you wake up in the morning and throughout the day, you catch glimpses of it in certain corners. Just for brief moments, as if it wanted to remind you that it's still there. If it had a mouth, it would smile. You shrink in frustration, hoping it will go away, but that very reaction is what makes it stronger. And so the damn monster grows again. Almost like a pet, it follows you everywhere, like a shadow slowly feeding on pieces of you. Of course, I'm not talking about a literal monster. What if I told you this is how I sometimes imagine anxiety, the kind that hits us all when we least expect it? Lately, I feel like I hear this word everywhere. On social media, among friends, at work. Personally, I find living with anxiety complicated. I've also learned that trying to force it to disappear isn't the solution. It's actually what fuels it. What feeds anxiety the most is our stubborn insistence on living in the future. Suddenly, today has lost its importance, even though it's the only place where we actually live. What will happen tomorrow, how we'll get there, how long it will take, that seems to be the new present for many people. And without a doubt, that is anxiety's favorite meal. What's most incredible is that, as the Stoics say, we forget something essential. We don't know if there will even be a tomorrow. Memento Mori. Remember that you will die. We insist on spending our energy thinking about a future that hasn't arrived, imagining scenarios that, quite simply, haven't happened. Anxiety is counterproductive to everything. My grandmother, always so wise, used to tell me, "Don't drown in a glass of water." And she was right. Sometimes we blow things completely out of proportion just by thinking about the future. We turn everything into an ocean, when in reality, we're still inside a glass of water. That's why I've learned to manage my anxiety better. There are many tools available. Personally, I like meditation because it helps me focus on the present. And for those nights before sleep, when your mind is racing and you can't find the breaks, there are techniques like journaling that also work. Write down what's worrying you in a notebook. The things you didn't get done during the day and that keep you awake. It's as if you're placing the weight of those thoughts onto the pages instead of carrying them in your head. Because even though having a monster as a pet might sound interesting, anxiety isn't particularly fun. How many times a day do you ask yourself this question? Am I happy? Or maybe not in those exact words, but in a different way. Maybe you don't directly question whether you're happy or not. Maybe it shows up differently, like replaying different what-ifs in your mind. What if you had a car to get to the office? What if you could work remotely 5 days a week? Would that make you happier? Logically, we tend to believe those what-ifs are what stand between us and happiness. And even though they feel like real problems, most of them are actually small, everyday concerns. Still, what keeps echoing in the back of our minds is this. Can life be lived without any problems at all? Like being in a constant state of happiness, where everything is handed to you on a silver platter. But how realistic is that? And if a life without problems doesn't really exist, then how are we supposed to be happy? If a problem-free life isn't possible, what does happiness even mean? We as human beings are by nature an unsatisfied species. It's ironic, we spend our lives chasing happiness, yet we might end up complaining if we reach it, or feeling disappointed when it doesn't look the way we imagined. The truth is, we keep waiting for happiness as if it's something we'll reach in some distant future. And in doing so, the small moments, the real kind of happiness, slip right through our fingers. We spend so much time focused on that faraway version of happiness that we become blind to the present. For a nature as restless as ours, a permanent state of happiness sounds more like the plot of a sci-fi movie. So maybe the question isn't, am I happy, but rather, when am I happy? You've probably heard it before. Happiness isn't a permanent state. It is found in small moments. And that's, in very simple terms, one of the main reflections behind a book I recently read, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. He does make a valid point about toxic positivity, something that's been flooding our screens lately and can actually contribute to a kind of collective anxiety, making you feel like you're not as positive as you're supposed to be. Still, if you ask me, what do I really lose by choosing the toxic positive tie side? In a measured way, of course. If I have to choose between filling my mind with positive messages that push me to grow and stay disciplined, or messages that constantly reminds me that everything could fall apart at any moment, I think I know which one I'd rather live with. But there is one idea from the book that stayed with me. Problems in life are inevitable. You can plan a trip and your flight gets delayed for reasons outside your control. You can work toward a promotion, only to see it go to someone else. You can be in a relationship and the other person leaves, even when you did nothing wrong. We are not immune to life. We are imperfect beings, moving forward, step by step, toward a better version of ourselves. So how do you deal with series of unfortunate events? By choosing which problems actually deserve your attention. By deciding what is worth your energy and what isn't. Because you already have more than enough problems every day? Maybe some are minuscule, but you have to be careful which ones you choose to focus on. Why give all of them the same weight? That's why you need to choose which problem is worth your time and your energy. Because problems will never disappear. Because when you focus all your attention on one single problem, you slowly begin to ignore everything else around you. And little by little, those other parts of your life begin to fade. And you lose sight of the happy pieces. It is all about perspective. Maybe that problem never goes away. Maybe there's no way to fix it, no way to forget it. But that doesn't mean it has to define everything. When a problem feels like a massive wave that's about to consume you, but you still don't want to run or hide, you have to ask yourself, do I want to stay stuck here, focusing all my energy on something I can't change? Or can I accept that some things don't work out and still move forward toward everything that's still waiting for me? You still have the power to choose which ones should be the protagonist. That's the main point of this book. And that brings me back to the question, when am I happy? Every time I solve a problem, I feel a sense of happiness, even knowing that more are on the way. But on those days when a problem feels so big that it overshadows everything else, that's when you have to decide whether it's worth your time and energy, and you have to remind yourself that other things have already brought happiness into your day. The small wins, like finally sending that email you spent hours writing and rewriting, the unexpected love from the people around you, your pet greeting you when you get home, or even the simple joy of something delicious you just ate. Simple, ordinary moments that may seem insignificant but still have the power to remind you. Even if the road is long and full of problems, don't dwell on them, because there is always something to enjoy along the way.